Alright guys, so moving on from here, moving on to the next task of our workshop where we will deploy the monolithic. Now, now here we're going to use Elastic Container Service to instantiate a managed cluster of EC2 compute instances. So deployment type would be EC2 for our ECS, so not Fargate, and we're gonna deploy the images as a container running on the cluster there. So that is what the overall idea is, and along with that what we're going to do is we're going to also have the load balancers configured, which is going to be your application load balancer. We're going to configure the target groups, and that is basically you know and then we have these containers which we have configured through the images, which is going to run the node.js application, and we're going to distribute the traffic within the monolithic applications there within the containers, which is or multiple containers running the monolithic application node.js, and which is using the application load balancer of AWS. So in this particular section, we're going to look into launching an ECS cluster, and we're going to verify the cluster. We're going to write some task definitions. We're going to configure the load balancer and the target group and listener. So that would be some of the steps which we're going to be following along. But to start off with, we're going to configure the ECS cluster, and that is going to be using the CloudFormation template. Okay, so let's get started with this. What we're going to do is we're going to get into CloudFormation. Just ensure that you're going to be remaining inside the same region. So I am in the I've searched for the CloudFormation. You will get into the landing page of CloudFormation console there. What you do is click on create a stack here. Now what we do is we're going to upload a template there. We have a template ready, but we're going to upload a template here, and we would choose the file which is going to be ecs.yaml. I briefly have showed you the YAML file, which is a CloudFormation template ecs.yaml file, and we will choose that particular file from our repository and all. So indeed we are into the same location here. You could actually very well see that. So we are into our code repository there, and we have the 2-containerized folder there inside where we have the infrastructure, and this is where we have this ecs.yaml. Alright, so we will this is what it says, YAML source file. We're going to open that up, and you can also view in designer and look into every detail step of what this YAML file is doing. But overall it's going to create an ECS cluster and deploy it behind an application load balancer. That's what is multiple services which this particular CloudFormation template is going to configure. So once you have got the folder there, I mean the YAML file, you will get into the next step, and this is where you can actually enter the name of the stack here. So I'm gonna call the stack as break the monolithic or monolith, and this is going to be a demo. And once we have defined the name there, what we do is we're going to look into some of the parameters which we have defined. So desired capacity is going to be 2 there, so pretty much okay with that. The rest of the things looks fine. We're going to look into T2 micro as an instance type, and we are good to good to go with a T2 micro. The max size is going to be 2. Anyways, we're going to leave everything default there. Just the name of the application, the stack there, which is what I've defined. I'm going to click on next here. Uh, Now here we're going to keep everything default there, and we're going to scroll down and get into next step. And now on the overview page here, we can review the stack, which is what we have picked up a template here and some of the details there. And especially this is runtime parameters there. And at the very bottom, we will go ahead and acknowledge that CloudFormation might create some IAM resources and all, and we should be okay with that. So I'm going to put a check mark there, and then finally I'm going to create a stack here. Now we will see that the stack is getting into create in progress state, and we can also do a refresh here to check the progress, and it's going to typically take about 5 minutes for the resources to be made available. Now as soon as I've run that, it has started creating these many different resources altogether. So it's going to have the VPC, the public subnet, the multiple subnets, the route table, internet gateway. Anyways, this is something which is part of VPC components there, and it also is creating an ECS cluster. I talked about it. That's what which we are concerned about here. It's going to create a service load, the security group for the ECS. It will also configure auto scaling soon. It will also configure the load balancer and whatnot. So we will give it little time here. As I said, that it's going to take more time here. You can also get into the events there and look into different events for this stack, what it is trying to do, what are the different logical IDs it's gonna have for different services and whatnot. So basically it's going to create all these resources there. So maybe, as I said, that you would want to dissect and look into each and every step of what this CloudFormation template is doing. You can actually review, have a look into that, and probably go through with the template. Of course this will require a lot of time there, and to save that is what we are going ahead and looking into some of the key components here, or key services which it is going to be deploying. All right, so we'll give it little time before it finally goes ahead and completes the deployment there. Once the deployment is completed, we should have the CloudFormation is stating that the complete the status showing that create incomplete, and then what we do is the very next task is to verify that whatever the resources it is creating, especially the cluster and all ECS, it is up and running or not. So we will go ahead and verify that. In the meantime, what I'm going to also show you is what this should be doing in terms of getting into the VPC there. So generally we know that we're going to have a one VPC there, what basically is a default VPC in each region and all, but then you could see that you have the new VPC coming through. So it has created a new VPC here, and I also already also have the other VPC. Let me try to go ahead and delete this one until you complete the following. It is okay, network interface. So let me try and see. So, okay, let me use that. In fact, let me try and see if I can delete it. Okay, so let me actually detach it. Okay, I have some issues there, but anyways, All right, I think was something which was a testing account. One of the student was working on. So, anyways, I'll look into that. And Says network interface is currently in use there. All right, that's going to be the RDS network interface. All right, as I said that I'll look into that. The important thing which we are looking into is, let's get back to what we were doing here is the VPC. So that's what it has created, an additional VPC there in the same region. So now I have three VPCs here, and this is the one which is what my template, the CloudFormation template, has created it. And you could get into a lot of other information, details and whatnot of the VPC there. We can also look into ECS, and that's what uh, you know what our focus would be. All right, so let me see if it has basically completed. All right, so the CloudFormation stack creation is completed now, and I can actually look into validating my cluster here. So it clearly says that I have a the cluster which I have given the name there, which has been created there. And we are good here. So a cluster is created, all looks fine here. We can also, let's say, get into the cluster itself, and maybe we're going to look into the task, and we will probably see that we have services here, and under task it should show running task here. One quick moment. So okay, in fact there is no running task here. Indeed, what we're going to do is uh, you know uh, instances. So rather what we have is the EC2 instances which are being created here as part of this CloudFormation stack here. And what we would do now is this is what has been created by CloudFormation template here. The very next step is, so we don't see any tasks because we need to define the task definition. So this is something we will go ahead and define and set it up in the next. But anyways, the CloudFormation works fine. We also have the EC2 instances which are running, so everything looks fine. We can also do an EC2 here, and we can see that there are two EC2 instances which are running here. So all looks fine here, and it's it is something which is ideally as expected so far. So now we're going to write a task definition here. So in the task definition, what we would do is, basically the task definition will specify how ECS, the Elastic Container Service, is going to deploy the application containers across your cluster there. So that's what we define in the task definition. So we're going to get into the task definition. We're going to click on create a new task definition. We're going to look into select a launch type, and we're going to use in EC2. So we are not using Fargate. So Fargate is a serverless model there, or you can do external whatever. But for the sake of this particular workshop, we're going to use EC2. All right. So that's going to be the EC2 here which we have configured. Now in the configured task and container definition, we're going to give the name, the task definition name, and role. So we're going to look into the name first of all. So what we have is API. So that's going to be the name, and then what we're going to do is we're going to leave everything as is so far. As of now. So we are not picking up any task role or network mode, whatever. We're going to keep it to the default one. in the configure task and container definition, which is going to be, container definition and the task size here, whatever. So what we're going to do is we will add the container here. So we're going to add the container. We'll not look into other parameters which are not defined or left blank, whatever. We're going to use the default settings and all. But here what we're going to do is we're going to use the container name. Now the container name, we will enter API here. So the name of the container would be API here. The so once you have the container name here, we will define the image here. Now we will get the image details here, and what we have to do is we will try to get into ECR, and we will get into ECR, and we will get into Elastic Container Registry here. And we will have this particular image here, which we have it, the latest one. So what we do is we will have image which is basically having an URI which is remember we talked about it, which is with account ID, and then the location there, and then the API which is your repository name and all. So what we do is we're gonna copy this, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it here into my notepad, and then what I'm gonna do is so we have done the tagging as latest step. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say colon and latest step. So okay, so what we do is we will have the account ID as I said that with the region, whatever region you have created this particular repository at, and then now you're gonna use the version, and which is the version for your image and all. And maybe I think if I'm gonna say version 1, that should be fine. So let me actually go ahead and pick this up. I'm gonna define, hold on. Or maybe we have done with the latest one. Let me try that out. I think this should be okay. So what we do is I'm gonna get into this. I'm gonna try this. Okay. Let me see if I have version 1. Latest. All right. So this looks fine, and once we have the okay, in the so what we also could define is the hard limits here. So maybe for example, we can set the hard limit as 256 there, and maybe if you want we can actually add a soft limit as well. But then we have defined the hard limit for our container to use about 256 MB of the memory there, and that's absolutely fine. So once we have done that, under the port mapping, We could do the port mapping with host port, which is going to be 0, and we're going to use the container port as 3000 here. All right, so which is going to be TCP. Now we're going to look into environmental variable here, and in the environmental variable we will look into CPU units, and this is going to be 256. All right, so all looks okay, and what we do now is click on add here, and we have now added the container here, and everything looks fine here. Now what we do is we'll go ahead and look into the other configurations here, and I think everything looks fine. We're going to keep everything default as is, and we're going to now go ahead and click on create. So now we're going to create a task definition. Okay, now we have the task definition which is being created successfully and configured. Now and we can actually validate that. So if we get into that, it says that we have a task definition and which is going to be okay. Okay, so this looks fine. One quick moment there, let me just validate one more time if we have everything done, set up fine. All right, so this looks fine. Okay, all right, so once we have done this, what I would do is move on from here and get into configuring the load balancer.